2. Good evening, and welcome to the Hoboken Quality of Life Coalition's Candidates Debate. I'm Steve Lennox. I'm the publisher of Tap Into Hoboken. We're going to have 2 debates tonight. We have 10 candidates running for 3 spots in Hoboken City Council races this year. Remember, Election Day is on November 2nd. Early voting starts tomorrow. You'll be able to go to Hoboken City Hall to cast your ballot for the next 10 days. You can also vote by mail. And again, November 2nd, you can go to your regular polling place. So we have some rules tonight. What I have in front of me is 5 candidates that are very eager to share their opinions with the voters, with the residents of Hoboken. There's a lot of opinions out there among the 5 of you. The name of the game tonight is going to be respect. We're going to be cordial to each other. I'm going to ask the same question of every candidate. They're going to have a minute and a half to respond to the question. After all 5 of the candidates have responded, we're going to give you a minute to respond if you'd like to give a rebuttal. So again, we're going to be respectful, we're going to be polite, because that's what the voters deserve, and I think that's what the residents of Hoboken expect out of their elected officials. So with that, let's get right into tonight's debate. We're going to start with opening statements of 1 minute each. Again, I'm going to work my way down the line here from left to right, my left to right. Thank you everybody for watching. You can continue to submit your questions online. We have a team over here to my left that's continuing to collect them. Let's start now with opening statements. Sheila Brennan, you're first with 1 minute.
Thank you. I want to thank our hosts for bringing us together tonight. My name is Sheila Brennan, and I believe Hoboken is the greatest place on earth. I'm not a politician, and I never ever thought I'd run for public office, but there are so many things that haven't been a priority over the past 4 years that are negatively impacting our residents' quality of life. Flooding from rain and raw sewage backing up into homes and businesses, parking, pedestrian safety, government accountability. I believe we can do better, and I'm running because I believe actually fixing these things is more important than chasing headlines.
Thank you, Sheila. Jim Doyle?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the QLC for yet again hosting this debate. I just want to introduce myself. For those who don't know me, I'm Jim Doyle. I've lived in Hoboken for 34 years with my lovely wife, Leah Healy. I moved here back 34 years ago to take a job at the United States Environmental Protection Agency, where I still work as an enforcement attorney. I am a sitting member of the City Council. I've served for 2 terms, which is 8 years. Or finishing up my 2nd term, that is. What brought me into politics 8 years ago was a desire for more open space in Hoboken and a desire to ensure that sensitive development occurred in our city. I think 8 years later, I think we've made great strides in both of those areas. We still have work to do, and but what has got me motivated to run again is climate change. And I hope that we can have a nice civil discourse this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Paul Presenzano.
My name is Paul Presenzano. I've been married to my wife for 7 years, and we have a 2.5-year-old son, Aiden Shiv. I'm a 25-year resident, New Jersey native, and like many of you, I fell in love when I moved to Hoboken. As a child, my parents taught me to give back to those who helped shape your life. And I'm running because it's time for me to give back to my community. And my skill set is something so needed in the City Council. I moved to Hoboken 25 years ago, and I built a career in international finance. As a business professional, I know how to review budgets and manage money. As a player and a coach, I know about teamwork. As a husband and a father, I know the challenges of raising a family. As a neighbor, I know we deserve better in City Hall. I'm not going to kick the can down the road. I'm going to pick it up and recycle it to ensure that our future is on the right track. I'll bring a new approach, a fresh set of eyes, and an independent voice. I want to ensure our tax dollars are spent more wisely, to create a culture of road safety that currently doesn't exist, and to bring City Hall into the 21st century. I also want to build a stronger recreation program and a pool, and to better maintain our public assets. I wish everybody good luck tonight.
Thank you, Paul. Ian Rintel.
Hi, my name is Ian Rintel, and if elected, I would be the only small business owner on the City Council. I do difficult things. I have lived in Hoboken for 23 years as a resident. I've had a business in Hoboken for 19 years, but I'm green to politics. I have a daughter, Sela, who's also 2.5 and is in the same pre-K class as Paul's child, Aiden. I want to be elected because I think that we need a wide variety of voices on our city council. I think we need diverse representation, and I don't think a mayor and his slate should be elected because I think that just gives too much control to any one person. So I'm hopeful that we'll vote in a way that gives Hoboken what it deserves, good representation for its constituents.
Thank you, Ian. Patricia Waiters.
Hi, my name is Patricia Waiters. My family moved to Hoboken in 1954. I'm the longest serving between the candidates that lived in Hoboken. I know Hoboken well. 20 years of running in Hoboken. I haven't been elected yet. However, I want to thank the 3,000 people that vote for me every year that I work hard to advocate for on all matters of concern. From flooding to parking to every issue there is to housing issues. 3,000 every year I ran for office, I got elected. However, I want to shift gears a little bit tonight because I noticed you guys said remain civil and be obedient to each other. I was disrespectful, this is only my opinion, at last night's debate. So I'm going to open my statement with last night's debate saying why I'm running for Hoboken City Council at large. At large is because I don't want one particular ward. I want to serve all of Hoboken, the whole community, especially people that look like me that's been neglected and abused for so long. So when I come across emotional, that's years and years of wear and tear of racism that exists in Hoboken. That's why I'm running for city council, to be that voice. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Patricia. And just to be clear, I didn't say to be obedient, just be polite to each other. I don't want anybody to be obedient.
You get it, all right.
Okay. So let's go. That was great. Those are good opening statements. Let's get right into the questions. We're going to start back here with Sheila, and we're going to talk about development first, right? It's probably one of the biggest issues facing Hoboken right now. Sheila, it's a simple question. It may not be a simple answer, but how should Hoboken handle future development?
Well, I think first we should handle, we should take a look at our infrastructure. I think we should actually put the brakes on any future development until we do a comprehensive review of our infrastructure, our water, our sewers, our parking, all the things that are likely to be additionally burdened by new people being drawn here through development. I think that Hoboken has grown 10%, 20% in the last 10 years. And as more and more buildings are being built, more and more people are adding to the burdens on our infrastructure. And I think we really have to take a look at that comprehensively. Not to say that I'm against development, but I think we need to do it in a thoughtful way. Infrastructure first.
Thank you, Sheila. Jim?
Thank you. I think it's fair to say, first of all, I've served on the planning board for 6 years over the last 7 years. I think I have a reputation of being, as I said in my opening remarks, I got into politics because of sensible and reasonable development was one of my principal goals. I think a property owner has the right to develop their land, and I would say consistent with the zoning laws, obviously. We've been pretty stingy about variances on the planning board, and I'm proud of that. And then in the redevelopment context, which is a subset of the area where essentially exceptions can be made to the zoning of the area, I think I have been openly critical. I think we've gone too far with some of the redevelopment plans that have been, I solely voted against many of them, or was in a 7-2 vote against them. So I am very sensitive to the development situation in Hoboken, the rate at which and the impact it has, but at the same time I disagree with Sheila in that I think North Hudson Sewage Authority is only at 60% capacity, so the city of Hoboken can continue developing at a reasonable rate, consistent with zoning. I think people are entitled to that, is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Jim. Paul, 90 seconds.
Development is always a sign of growth, which is good. But again, I think first we have to talk about our infrastructure if we can handle that. Now, anybody that's pointing fingers, you can do it in many different ways of pointing fingers, but I think it has to make sense for the town. It has to make sense economically. It has to respect the spectrum of all income earners, not just placating to one class. It has to be equitable. It's not the only way to raise taxes, or raise money from taxes is the only way to do things. There's plenty of other things that we can do to increase revenue in our town and to keep taxes in check. But the biggest thing for me is we first need to solve the flooding issue, and then we can talk about development. Because at the end of the day, if we have raw sewage flowing through our streets on every single rainstorm, and we put another building up, we need to address that issue first before we even talk about developing further.
Thank you, Paul. Ian?
So I recently had to get a use variance, that's a Class D variance, in order to open my business. And in studying how to get that variance, I came across a document from 1996 saying how wonderful it would be and recommending that my exact type of business be exactly in the location where my business actually is. And it just seems to me like we come up with great ideas in Hoboken and then we don't follow through with those ideas. I think that perhaps we should have updated our zoning laws, and I would defer to Councilman Doyle on the exact laws. Maybe he thinks it's just fine to leave things as they are and force developers or force business owners to go get expensive variances in order to move forward with plans. But I think that if we have to go back 25 years to find permission or find support for an idea in Hoboken, I think maybe our zoning laws are just antiquated and they need to be updated. And I intend to look into that and to push hard to keep things. I don't think we should be, I would call it zoning by variance. I think we should have some consistent, up-to-date 2021 laws for zoning and for development in Hoboken.
Thank you, Ian. Patricia?
All right, with respect to development, I just want to refresh people's memory with the Solomon DeWitt case with all of the mayors getting arrested behind this one developer that really scammed them. It woke up my eyes when that incident happened. I was working in Jersey City with the late Willie Flood. What the problem with development is not the development, it's the process. You have the mayor and his cronies in the developer's pocket, so you're definitely not getting open and transparency. And yes, it is. The last 8 years, last 2 terms, when Mr. Doyle, and that's how they do it, all of their buddies sit on the zoning and planning board, and you line up all of your ducks, there go corruption right there. We are overdeveloped in Hoboken and not one affordable unit. Everything is luxury. So when I go to those zoning and planning meetings and see the planning board members like Mr. Doyle find every reason in the world to develop only luxury property, we have a problem. And we are overdeveloped. That's where you're flooding, your infrastructure is crumbling on 100-year-old infrastructure. You got a building, 2 new buildings on every corner within the last 8 years. The development is horrible in Hoboken. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Jim, I recognize the 2 of the candidates mentioned you specifically. Do you want to start first?
I was going to raise my hand.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you. Just first of all, to Ian's point, the 1996 document, the master plan has been re-examined and rewritten in 2004, 2010, 2018. It is required by law to be looked at every 6 years. So the notion that we're looking back to 1996 and there are great ideas back then, I dismiss, because it was the area in town that Ian is referring to were warehouses back then, and much has changed. That being said, I also would say, he said that it's expensive to go and get these variances. If you comply with the zoning laws, you don't need a variance. And I will tell you, the planning board has been very stringent, and it has resulted in fewer and fewer applications because the board is not granting variances, and I'm proud of that. So this is not a question of variances, zoning by variance. And just to the last point, the planning board doesn't choose luxury or non-luxury. The planning board has a yes or no vote. So if the property owner comes in and is requesting luxury units, the planning board can't tell them not to do that. They could only deny the application.
Thank you. Would any of the other candidates like to give a 1-minute response? We're going to start with Patricia. She had her hand up
I'm
first.
sorry, my
Yes.
point exactly. If somebody come in and you know you're a planning board member and the property owner want to sell and make luxury condos, I'm talking about properties that they try to allege is eminent domain to build on there. I'm not talking about a property owner, and half of the property owners been losing their property behind the same scandalous stuff, and the city take over the property and they develop the way they want anyway. And to this young man's point next to me, Ian, he's right. I got a document from 1987. They could say what they supposed to comply to that's in writing, but they don't comply to it. They have not updated a lot of things just with the election, just with the with them being on the ballot. All of the data in City Hall is outdated, sir.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Patricia.
you.
Ian.
I mean, we have in Hoboken, presently, we have the I-1 and the I-2. These are industrial zones, and they're specific, and it's for manufacturing. And the I-1W does have a retail component to it, which is a little more useful. But by and large, we don't have manufacturing in Hoboken, and we certainly don't have manufacturing on the scale of the number of lots, the amount of space that the zone allocates for I-1 and I-2. So, of course, we're getting a lot of redevelopment agreements, and of course, we're also getting developers asking for variances because the properties aren't really usable as manufacturing property. You can't pull a semi up to the back of my building. A semi can't make the turn. So the building can't be used as I-1, and either somebody redevelops it or goes for a variance like I did.
Thank you, Ian. Perfect. Thank you. Sheila, yes.
Yeah, I want to mention that many people are unaware that there have already been, and there are, 10 redevelopment projects already approved and in the pipeline, which will undoubtedly bring thousands of new residents to our town. And nothing has been done to address everyday flooding and the infrastructure problems we have, like parking. It's all gone unaddressed while these projects have been approved. So I think we really do need to take a look at what we've done, where we're at, and take a breather for a moment while we thoughtfully investigate where we're at with infrastructure.
Thank you, Sheila. I'm going to mix things up a little bit on this next question. I want to start with you, Patricia, because you mentioned affordable housing. So I'm going to give you a chance first, and we'll work our way down the line. What would your plan be to bring more affordable housing into Hoboken?
Change the planning board members and change the mayor. No, I'm just joking. I would definitely, I just want to give a small scenario real quick. There's a developer that had paperwork, even in Jersey City, because I went with this developer since 2018. I would take the politic wheeling and dealing out of the process with respect to development. And if a developer come in and want to develop and give us, not the 10% required of him for affordable housing, even offer us 40% and he's overlooked, I will work hard to fight for that developer till he get, his, to be able to build the housing. Development, and I will look into the way the process is ran for, like, with Section 8 and other low-income commodities to get more low-income coming into Hoboken versus all the luxury. I would just pay close attention to the zoning and planning process and the whole process with respect to a developer coming into the city, and not a political developer, a developer where it's going to benefit the whole city.
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
Sheila?
Yeah, when we talk about affordable housing in Hoboken and the need for it, I think what we also have to talk about is displacement. And the length of time that it takes for a project that might contain some affordable housing to come to fruition, it is a long time generally, and that doesn't solve the immediate displacement problem that we have. I think that and then on top of it, we have developers who are able to opt out of their affordable housing responsibilities by paying money to the city. I would stop that immediately. I think that rent control is not affordable housing, but it's also an element in helping to keep Hoboken affordable for people. I serve on the rent leveling board, and I've seen this administration defund the rent leveling office, de-staff it, and all but starve it to death, and which I find appalling. And our laws are already complicated and haven't been enforced as rigorously as I would like to see. And the current state of affairs in the rent leveling office is just adding to that burden. So people are not getting the advice they need.
Thank you, Sheila. Jim?
Thank you. I'll start by saying the administration has just announced recently creating a division of housing to focus and address
That was a
this.
brag.
I would also point out that I have been in favor of, in the redevelopment zones, where, which we just heard mentioned, there is a 10% requirement for affordable housing, and it was proposed to be increased to 15 or 20%, and I supported the full 20%, but it ended up getting pulled because of back and forth and certain political pressures from the developers. So I completely am in favor of increasing the amount of affordable housing as distinguished from rent-controlled housing. Rent-controlled housing is a different animal, and that's where the displacement is coming. I believe I'm interpreting the question to be one relating to the increased number of housing stock that's affordable, both in low income as well as what they call blue-collar working class housing. So there is a lot that's being built. I would conclude by saying some of the developers are looking to build massive 18-story residential buildings that are, in my opinion, just way too big. Now, Ms. Waiters feels that those larger buildings would have many more units and more affordable housing in it, and that's a good thing. I am opposed to those very, very large projects, not because there'll be more affordable housing, but because the scale and the scope in our city is just too much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Paul?
Affordable housing is necessary. It builds the fabric of our community. But there's one thing I think that we tend to forget. We always tend to bring in these consultants to kind of give us ideas. We need to reach into our own community and use the people that live there for the ideas. Use Patricia's contacts that she wants is saying that she wants to be heard. Well, let's look at her. Let's look for some examples of what we can do better. But I also think we need to review the current setup. And you need to find the inefficiencies, and let's make us more efficient. Efficiency is a big part of my platform. I think it lowers costs and opens up new opportunities. But there also has to be a bigger plan. It can't just be this project to that project to this project. We need to have a bigger plan for what we want in the city. Also, once these things are built, we also have to maintain them. Because I've walked in buildings knocking on your doors to introduce myself, and some of these buildings are not taken care of, and I think fall through the cracks, and that's not fair to the people living in these buildings. Yet some are very well kept. So we have to figure out why some are and why some aren't.
Thank you, Paul. Ian?
So while increasing the amount of affordable housing stock is a noble goal, I think also making sure that affordable housing, that the law is applied fairly. I think that there are projects that somehow wiggle out of affordable housing by maybe changing the total number of doors to just small enough and making bigger units. So there seems to be ways for developers to minimize the amount of affordable units that aren't in good faith. But the other question, because it seems like this has turned into two questions, which is the displacement issue. I feel like it's the landlord's responsibility to pay realtor fees. I don't think that tenants should be obligated to go and pay a month's rent to a realtor. I think that that's the cost of a landlord doing business, and I think it's patently unfair for a good tenant who perhaps they've been in their unit a year or two to be displaced because there's no reason for a landlord not to listen to their realtor and say, okay, I'm going to relist the property. It won't cost me a month's rent because the tenant is going to pay a month's rent. I don't have to pay for the realtor. The tenant has to pay for the realtor. So I think that Manhattan has changed that. I think New York City has changed that. And I think Hoboken should consider changing that law too, or creating a law that says realtor fees are the burden of the landlord.
Thank you, Ian. Patricia, you want to give a minute
Just
response?
2 quick rebuttals.
Sure.
One to Paul, he's absolutely right. If you go revisit the only affordable housing we got, which is the HHA, the inside of the units, I don't even want to describe, horrible. Now they have a vision. They just said on June 10th, just 2021, June 10th, some new developers come out into the HHA and promise them redevelopment, which isn't true, and I feel bad because they're being deceived because it's an election time. That's another thing. No deal shouldn't be cut. And to Councilman Doyle, he said that the mayor just created a vision for new affordable housing to come in, which is absolutely not true. Here's the newspaper article. That was a bribe given to Vanessa Falco to start this new thing in January, not to run for office. So that's clearly pay to play, and that's the problem with development dealing and wheeling. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Jim, do you want to respond to that?
I'm not going to slander anybody in public, but I did want to point out to Paul that there is a plan. The plan is the City of Hoboken's master plan, which was an award-winning plan, I might add. And I was not on the planning board when it was passed, so I'm not tooting my own horn. But there's also redevelopment plans. Each one of them addresses the specific areas, some of which are 33 city blocks in size. So there is planning that's going on out there. The real question is, why is the development all happening at the same time? And I do agree that we should be meeting it out. But at the same time, there's a private sector side of this. If you've been, had a property that's been waiting for 10 years for development and you're frustrated and you're paying taxes and you're not getting anything back for it, you have to be sensitive. And I'm kind of surprised that I'm the one saying this from my reputation. But you have to be sensitive to, the needs of the private developers as well as, the city's planning process.
Thank you, Jim. We're going to start with Paul.
I just want to hope that the creator of this plan is not the same one that has the resiliency plan, which doesn't save us from the flooding. Because if it's the same person that built this plan for down the road, we've got problems and we should review it.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, Sheila.
Yeah, regarding the city's new division of housing and the person selected to run that division, I want to point out that the position was not advertised, and there are countless very qualified people out there who might have been interested in applying for that job, but this was a job that was given to one person. I'm not going to talk about the reasons that I think that happened, but there were many infinitely qualified people who have actually been working in the sector for many years that understand it inside and out, that were not given the opportunity to apply for that job.
Thank you, Sheila. Ian, you're last to go on this question.
In terms of Vanessa Falco's hiring a sitting council person, either there's something improper or it appears there's something improper, and I don't think that the citizens of Hoboken have been even given an explanation about how a position is created and given to a sitting council person who could be up at this dais debating with us, if not promised a job by our mayor. I have a serious problem. And if ever offered a job, if I win and I'm offered a job by any mayor, I'm not going to take it. It's a conflict of interest for me to take a job to not run for re-election. It really is a problem.
Thank you. And I just want to take a minute to recognize neither Mayor Bala is here tonight, nor is Councilwoman Falco. It's fine to talk about them. Let's just be respectful of how we talk about everybody, especially those. Nobody did anything wrong, but let's just be respectful of those that aren't in the room.
It's hard when it's in the public's eye, though. The public already made their opinions.
Thank you,
It's
Patricia.
hard when it's in a front page paper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're on a good roll here. So we're going a little bit long, but I think my cameramen are okay with that, and I think the hosts are okay with that. So I want to move on to the next subject, because Patricia, you brought it up, but I want to start with Jim to ask the question. Homelessness. We talked about development. We talked about affordable housing. The next conversation, obviously, is about homelessness. What is your plan, or what have you done to tackle homelessness in Hoboken?
Homelessness is a very difficult topic. I mean, to to solve, is what I'm saying. So we have, I can tell you that we've heard criticism of the homeless task force, which was created in 2018. The task force, which has been accused of just being a photo op, has created a voucher system and has actually housed 33 to date homeless people who were homeless in 2018 and who no longer are. So is 33 enough? No. But is nothing being done? No. That's not fair. The new police chief is taking this very seriously and taking a different approach. There was a time when the homeless were, on Washington Street at certain intersections where they commonly congregated, would be taken over to the hospital because of, there may be psychological issues, and the hospital was not equipped to deal with it, and the hospital would, essentially set these people out, and it was just this cycle that would just go back and forth. And so we need to get, whether it be an in-house social worker or a program, to work to help us address our growing homeless population.
Thank you, Jim. Paul?
Well, as I said last night, when we all got together and had a discussion, it was great that the administration put together a task force, but they haven't met since October 2018. I mean, this is simple, and I'll show the same picture I showed last night. They have not done anything except get this little donation piece, which, by the way, in front of Starbucks, there used to be one, but it's not there anymore. But ultimately, I'm not a specialist on somebody in the psychology of homelessness. I need professional consultation on that. But we do have to meet regularly. And we can't push this just to the police to kind of move these people along. They're human beings. And so therefore, I think it's a responsibility of the town and the community members to come up with some solution. I'm a big believer in community involvement and bringing people together to come up with ideas. We have a lot of smart people in this town. But ultimately, just relying on the police to move people along is not the right solution. We also have to meet more than a hiatus of 3 years. We have to have more people come to the table and talk about it. But of course, it's not a sexy topic, so it's never going to become something. Since COVID, we've seen the increase. But the town does step up. The town made sure that many of these homeless people were fed. But in the same token, they're a part of our community. And we have to accept them, and we can't push them aside because they're humans too.
Thank you, Paul. Ian?
Taking care of the homeless people is one topic that I think we could be more compassionate about. Having bathrooms available after hours. I mean, I even find for myself at 7 a.m. when I need a bathroom and all the city parks bathrooms are locked, I do understand the logic of locking. You don't want a homeless person making that into their domicile, but I also feel like there has to be a better way. If a homeless person needs a bathroom, they shouldn't need to wait until they're unlocked at 8 a.m. or sometimes later than that. But then on the subject of reducing homelessness, providing places for homeless to live, I think we actually do have a pretty good homeless shelter, and I think that going through that homeless shelter and providing funding, which is what those parking meters, that was the intention. I think that that's a good way to help the homeless no longer be homeless, or help the homeless have a place to sleep. And I would be in favor of maybe expanding the funding that our homeless shelter gets, although I will say that our homeless shelter actually does a really good job with the homeless.
Thank you, Ian. Patricia?
I want to share with you my experience with the homeless, what I've actually been doing physically with the homeless for the last 10 to 15 years in Hoboken. I also want to share one of my opponents, Cheryl Fallick. I want to give kudos to her because there's this young lady, she used to own her own home. She went from owning her own home to other issues that happened and became homeless. This lady don't even want to sleep in the shelter. the way the conditions are in the shelter. So what I would do, what I would continue to do for homeless, I go out and I listen to them and I try to address their needs, because most, especially the mental ones with mental issues, people don't understand what happens behind closed doors that land them into being homeless in the first place. I want people to start showing a little more compassion than throwing a cookie and a bone and a blanket at a homeless person and think that's going to solve the problem, jumping in photo ops, distributing food, and they need a roof over their head. It took every ounce of my being not to give that lady room on my living room sofa, Elizabeth Adams. She told me, yes, I could say her name. I know she's not here, but it broke my heart that she went to every official there was, starting from the governor to the mayor to everybody, and they took a known disregard. I brought it to their attention that there's 197 vacant units in the HHA. They look the other way. So with homelessness, we need somebody in government that's going to do what they're supposed to do and do their due diligence and not write everything down on paper and say, well, this is the legislation that says A, B, C, and D, and let their actions speak volumes like mine.
Thank you, Patricia. Sheila?
Yeah, I feel that there's no excuse for a single person to be homeless in America. We're the richest country on earth. And Hoboken is a compassionate place, but there hasn't really been the will on the part of any of the past administrations to solidly commit a big portion of the budget to addressing this in whatever form that takes. Why are we still talking about homelessness again at another debate, at another election? Why, and talking about what we're going to do to fix it? Why hasn't it been addressed thus far? I think it's unconscionable, and I would want to work diligently to make it a priority on the council if I'm lucky enough to be elected.
Thank you, Sheila. Is there anybody who wants to give a 1-minute rebuttal or response to any? Yes, sure, Jim, of course.
And I'm glad that everyone here is acknowledging the work of the Hoboken Shelter, because they do great work. The St. Matthew's Church provides meals for the homeless as well. I think that I don't know how one defines not having a meeting since 2018, because the 33 vouchers, or the voucher system that has resulted in 33 people getting housing has happened since 2018, and whether they're not meeting and this is happening, I don't know how you define it. But as far as the prop goes, the meter, it was an effort to get people to stop giving money directly to homeless people who are requesting help and giving it to the shelters, where it would go towards nutritious meals rather than something else. And so it was one of many things that the city was doing. That's not the only thing, and if you think it's hokey and it's not effective, that's fine, but that wasn't exactly the entire campaign of the Homeless Task Force, and I think it's unfair to characterize it as such.
Thank you, Jim.
That's
Patricia, 1 minute.
absolutely incorrect. First, the orange meters was for, it was said, oh, we only putting it here for Christmas time. I was at meetings when they came in the City Hall to complain. Then they later said that it was to collect money for the homeless. That wasn't the first thing that was told. Doyle was on the council then. I was at that meeting that night. Secondly, with respect to the homeless, what a wonderful job the shelter's doing, the director of the shelter shouldn't be sitting on the housing authority board knowing that they warehousing apartments instead of putting the homeless in the apartments. She sits as a commissioner, which I find really confusing and disturbing, and she runs the shelter. Okay, so don't act like those homeless people stay in there for free. It's all still money. It's all still money involved. It's not fair to sit here and say that nobody wants to help the homeless and what they're doing to help the homeless. This is not about giving somebody kudos and jumping in photo ops saying how much free food you're giving them. I eat, but I want to go to the bathroom to take a clean shower afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Does anybody else want to give a 1-minute response? If not, we're going to go ahead and take a break. We've run long in our first segment, but I think it was a good spirited conversation. We've already hit on the redevelopment project, which flowed right into affordable housing and, of course, homelessness. We're going to come back in about 8 minutes for those of you that are watching at home, so the Candace can take a break, get a cup of water, make a phone call, whatever they need to do. We're going to be back in 8 minutes with some more questions and answers. Thank you for tuning in to the Hoboken Quality of Life Coalition's Candidates Forum.
Is there any chance that you
Stevens Jersey City Ford, located right off of NJ 440 North. Across the Hudson Mall is your one-stop for all your automotive needs. Check out Ford's latest models like the 2020 Ford Fusion with its stylish looks and hybrid options, or the unparalleled high-performance 2020 Ford Mustang. The 2020 Ford F-150 Raptor is ready for those rugged off-road terrains with trail control. Need a mid-sized truck for your towing and hauling? The 2020 Ford Ranger will deliver. The 2020 Ford Escape is a luxury SUV that was made for comfort and adventure on the go. Returning is Ford's legendary Bronco, which takes you back to the true meaning of off-roading. They are now available for pre-order in our showroom or on our website. Let us help you find your next vehicle. Stevens Jersey City Ford, 201-432-7272.
Ford made their first all-electric SUV a Mustang. Rapid acceleration, reactive handling, 300-mile range. You control how it feels and how it sounds. It knows you. It dials into your preferred settings. It has an array of driver assist technology. Cameras and sensors enhance your awareness and provide you with additional control. But it's more than cutting-edge technology. It's the spirit of it. It's a Mustang.
Introducing the all-new Ford Maverick. A truck for people who do stuff. And people who make stuff. People like Gabrielle Union.
I make this look good, don't I?
Who haul whatever they want to wherever they want. Like wood to build things made of wood with. And friends to get weird with. It's for long trips that the standard hybrid engine with a targeted EPA estimated city fuel economy rating of 40 miles per gallon helps with. That an 8-inch touchscreen connects with. And any trip that this interior makes more comfortable. But we'll let Gabrielle tell you all about it.
Or I could just tell them it's a Ford truck that starts at less than $20,000 MSRP.
Yep, that works too. The all-new Ford Maverick, built to defy expectations. Truck isn't just a brand new truck when it's tough enough to have best-in-class available payload and smart enough to know that a cab can also be an office. A truck equipped with best-in-class available towing that asks, why can't all that power more than just this truck? No, your brand new truck isn't just a brand new truck when it's the all-new F-150. Tough this smart can only be called F-150.
Good evening, and welcome back to the Hoboken Quality of Life Coalition Candidates Forum. I'm Steve Lenox. I'm the publisher of Tap into Hoboken. Our first segment, we already started having a great conversation with 5 of the 10 candidates that are running for the City Council this year. We've got 5 more coming in our next debate a little later this evening, but I want to jump right back into the questions. I think this has been a great conversation so far. Paul, I want to start with you, and I want to talk about recent flooding. Flooding has long been an issue that's plagued Hoboken. We've seen it get worse and worse and worse, it seems, especially just the past few weeks. We had the hurricane come through. Hoboken was underwater again. We all remember Hurricane Sandy. Very simple question again, but a tough answer. Is enough being done to prevent flooding in Hoboken?
I've lived on 3rd and Madison, and I know flooding. And I live on Hudson Street now, and I still know about flooding. But it seems every day rains now, we flood. We have to just simply admit there's a bigger problem here. It's something going on that we don't know. And we can't keep just accepting it's an excuse of climate change or it's a 100-year storm. We need to figure out how to better protect Hoboken. So I believe the resiliency plan should continue, but we have to admit that there's a flaw in it. So let's use a common sense approach. Let's use a community-based effort. I am a big fan of incentivizing storage tanks on the property or in the streets. And if we did that across the town from existing homeowners, we could delay millions of gallons of water from hitting our sewer lines. So it's neighbors helping neighbors. I mean, same time, we clean out our sewer lines a little bit more than every 3 years, which was stated on the last phone call by the NHSA. That would be another improvement if we could do that. And then just put this all together and think how much flooding we could mitigate if we just took a common sense approach and looked at the community.
Thank you, Paul. Ian?
So we have the 2 flood pumps in Hoboken, and we rate our flood pumps in Hoboken on gallons per day. New Orleans has its flood pump, the largest in the world, granted. Theirs does 540 million gallons per hour. Ours does 50, or 2 flood pumps, I believe, and Doyle, I'm sure will, Jim will probably correct me on this. I believe it's 50 million gallons per day. So either our flood pumps are undersized, or maybe New Orleans flood pump is oversized. But I don't know that pumps are the answer. NPR just published an article recently about Washington, D.C.'s flood tunnel. It's a 5-mile long, 23-foot diameter tunnel, and that holds 82 million gallons of water. And as it turns out, DC has some similar problems to what we have, because they have sewage and flood rainwater mixed together, and that was the purpose of their enormous flood tunnel. And it was expensive. However, I think it might work. I think we would need a lot more pumps to avoid flooding. Now, what our pumps really do well is it pumps Hoboken out once we've flooded. But considering it's rainwater mixed with sewage, I don't know that just getting us pumped out is really the solution for us.
Thank you, Ian. Patricia, on the issue of flooding, has Hoboken had enough?
Hurricane Katrina, you forgot Irene, and now the other hurricane a couple of weeks ago. With respect to flooding, the 2 pumps that I've never seen, and I'm everywhere in Hoboken for years, when the pumps was mentioned and brought in by Mayor Zimmer, she also opened up a resilient park on Madison Street, which the park is now closed down. I have a question tonight for Mr. Doyle. Is the 50 million gallons that he said last night, is it pumping the water out into the streets, or is it pumping the water in? Because it's gotten worse. So my solution to that is, in the meantime, and put it on the record that I applied for the sewage authority like for the last 15 years and was always overlooked. I said that years ago, like after a regular rainstorm, you see trash where it come up from the sewage all around the sewer, where I used to take the initiative sometime and just clean up around that area where I live. I always said, let's address it. Let's start with the sewer. Especially when they build, when you're doing construction, all of that cement and stuff go down in the sewage too. And I raised big concerns about that. Again, was overlooked. But the main thing right now people should do is worry about a prevention, like from their own home with respect to their basements and stuff, and buy a boat. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Sheila?
Yeah, I think that the NHSA has to do more than they're currently doing. This idea that we have 40% excess capacity in the sewage system doesn't do anything for my neighbors and myself that had 3 feet of water in our basements. Maybe we were the catch basins that the city needed to hold the water until it could be pumped out. I don't know. But I think what we need to do is clean the catch basins and the sewage pipes more than once every 3 years. I think it should be done on a rolling basis, especially since this is an ongoing problem that isn't getting addressed from rainstorms. Address the pinch points. Why are some blocks flooding that never flooded before? Why is raw sewage flowing up into people's parlor level bathrooms? Why is the city not surveying after a heavy rain event? Why are neighbors having to do that instead of the city doing it? So I think the city has to take a much more proactive approach and actually admit that flooding from rain has not adequately been addressed.
Thank you, Sheila. And Jim?
Thank you. I've been asked a lot of questions, and I would hope I can answer them. I can tell you as an EPA official, which, by the way, I am not speaking on behalf of EPA. I'm required by law to point that out. But I have experience with Newtown Creek in New York City. I know a fair amount about the tunnel that Ian referred to. The 50 million gallons of water from one of the pumps, the other pump is, I think, 35 million. So we're at 85 million gallons. And then the third pump that is yet to be built would be, I don't know, I'm guessing it's between 35 and 50. So it could be 50. So we're well over 100 million gallons of water that can be pumped. The pumps don't wait for the rain to stop to start pumping. They pump during the storms. And in Sandy, when the ocean came into Hoboken, there were 475 million gallons of water. So if you think about how long it would take 3 pumps that are pumping somewhere between 110 and 150, whatever million gallons, this is not New Orleans. This is a square mile, and we don't have the money to build a 30, what was the length of this underground tunnel under Hoboken? To Sheila's point, North Hudson Sewage Authority has the capacity to treat 60%, or only 60% capacity is being used. So with that, there is an issue with conveying the water to the system. So the problem is we have a combined sewage outfall system, and that needs to be addressed, and it's $1 billion solve. So we all need to have a public-private partnership and retain water with rain gardens, green roofs, and water. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Jim. I know I'm wrapping you up here,
Yep.
but we're going to get into what you're saying in a minute,
Okay.
actually.
Thank
Does anybody
you.
want to give a 1-minute rebuttal? My next question is going to be similar, but we could do a 1 minute. Ian?
I'm just going to point out that Hoboken being 1.5 miles long, a flood tunnel under Hoboken, the length would, by my estimation, store, if you will, somewhere around 25 million gallons. Now, the number that Jim, because we're supposed to be using first names, the number that he gave was 50 million gallons a day. So it sounds like a big number, but that's a day. Does that mean for one day, if we get 50 million gallons of excess rainfall for one whole day, we have to be flooded? I think that's what it means. Whereas if we could hold many millions of gallons underneath our city somehow, it would be, instead of pumping out, we could prevent the type of flooding that Sheila Brennan is having in her basement.
Thank you, Ian. If nobody else wants to give a 1-minute response, we're going to move on to the next question. Like I said, it's going to follow the same track. When we talk about flooding, these storms are becoming more frequent, whether it's Katrina or Irene, or more frequently Ida and the one that came right before it. So we talk about rain tunnels, we talk about resiliency parks, but let's talk about green infrastructure. If we accept the fact that climate change is coming or has come already, and that's what's causing these increased storms, green infrastructure and green policies in Hoboken, electric vehicles, rain gardens, solar panels, is Hoboken doing enough on that front? And I want to start with you, actually, Ian, because it's your turn to start.
I just spoke. Black plastic, it seems like that's something that we should ban. kind of in favor of the plastic bag ban because I think our sewers are not getting clogged as much. Now we don't even need to clean them except once every 3 years, apparently. But black plastic, it can't be recycled. It doesn't seem to serve any purpose. I mean, you could use black plastic and it's pretty, I guess, but why can't we use white plastic? I think white plastic recycles just fine and black plastic not so much. But the question was about solar panels, and I think we are doing a lot. We could be doing more, and I think anytime the return on investment, and this is really a Paul question, but if the return on investment of green improvements is good, I would consult with a finance guy, is what I mean by Paul. I think we should implement them, and I don't know that we're implementing enough green upgrades to justify what's presently available.
Thank you. Patricia, we're going to
I
come to you
was a
next.
little satisfied with it when we, like 5, 6 years ago, we did the green roof on the high schools, and I see Union City did the same thing. I mean, it's like a slow process, but it's really up to whoever the council people be to bring that to the board. And when the developers come in and want to build, we should bring that across to them too. Let's make sure they have the green initiative, the whole thing, and like try to prepare us more for like the whole global warming thing. And with him, with Ian, with the plastic bags, he absolutely right. I noticed they banned the white plastic bags and regular bags and trying to give more paper bags, but you're starting to see more paper bags and trash and stuff on the thing, on the outside on the ground. And the black plastic bags, the stores have only black plastic bags now. So they actually defeated the purpose from going from no bags banned in the bags. Bags is back in the stores, if you notice, and they all black plastic bags.
Thank you, Patricia. Sheila?
Yeah, certainly I applaud any green initiative that we can do, but I think we're not looking at some of the more innovative things that have come out, innovative technologies that have come out since Mayor Zimmer's time. Why are we not requiring that all sidewalks and streets, as they are replaced, be replaced with permeable surfaces? That would go a long way toward helping divert or discharge some of the, or take away some of the floodwaters. Things like that. I think we need to really get into learning about innovations, and there's so many things coming out now that we are just not doing. You know, I think the bag bans are great, the green roofs are fine, but that's not nearly enough. The rain gardens on the corners are a great idea, but they're not being maintained, so you see a lot of dead grasses and a lot of garbage and litter thrown in them. So maybe they still work, but I think they work better when the plants are alive. So I think we need to get new technology involved and be always on the lookout for that.
Thank you, Sheila. Jim?
Thank you. Earlier, Paul said that something's going on that we don't know about, and that was recently stated at a city council meeting, and I was somewhat floored because what we do know about it, and it is climate change. It certainly is getting worse, and I'm not trying to be hostile. I'm glad to hear that Ian agrees with me about the bag ban. I'm not really all that good about taking credit, believe it or not, but it was my idea, and I wrote the statute and the ordinance, and it was passed. The bag ban does not allow black plastic bags. It bans all plastic bags. If people are using black plastic bags in stores, then they are violating the ordinance, and we should let the Department of Environmental Services know, and they will go and get fined. The paper bags will decompose. We charge for the paper bags, which is a disincentive economically, so that people will bring their own reusable cotton bags or whatever they are. As far as development, I'm glad that Patricia and I agree on something. The planning board, every project that has more than 5 units is required to have a detention system that like Ian is describing, holds not 25 million gallons, but it's something in the order of, it depends on the size of the property and the number of units, but it's 1,000, 1,500 gallons that are detained under the building, and when the storm is over, and the water is gone, it will be discharged to the sewer system at that point. And green roofs are required, are strongly urged, and are almost always installed, as well as, so we are doing these things for the new buildings that are coming on, but we have to have a public-private partnership, because some of it falls on the property owner, like, Paul and I, or anyone, and some of it falls on the city when it comes to resiliency parks and bioswales and rain gardens.
Thank you, Jim. Paul?
So I think there's one thing we need to think about here. If we're going to put a roof garden up there, and I think it's 25%, I don't know, maybe I'd be speaking out of turn, but you have to have something of that sort if you put something on your roof. Do we have now the green garden police? Who's going up and checking if the garden is living? If the garden's not living, it doesn't do anything for us. And I've been up and looking at different buildings. I mean, I have the ability to go up and when I'm knocking on doors and see things, and I've seen some of the rain gardens and they look like they're dead. We look on Washington Street and some of those and they look dead. And I think the biggest thing we can look around City Hall. It's embarrassing. We said that was all beautiful for green, but when I walk by, there's nothing beautiful about it. It's barren dirt. So I think if we're going to do something, we need to have accountability and transparency. Who's watching this? It's nice to put everything on a piece of paper, but when you have nobody checking up on it, there's no checks and balances, what's the sense? At the end of the day, 10,000 roofs can have a lawn on top of it, but if they're all burnt to yellow, they're not stopping anything. The rain is just going straight through it.
Thank you, Paul. You put your hand up first, Patricia.
I have
We're
a
going to start
quick
with you.
rebuttal.
A 1-minute response.
He
Yeah.
said, who will go around watching this? I even became a pest to some residents. I do. I made sure they maintained the one in the high school, and I also knock on a few doors when I noticed the solar light that's on top of the roof and the porch, and asked them. And I said, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but how's the roof going or whatever like that. That do help some too, interacting with your neighbor and your community.
Thank you.
But we all could do better.
Thank you. We're going to come over to Ian now to answer a 1-minute rebuttal.
Okay, so I didn't say black plastic bags. It's black plastic that can't be recycled. The takeout containers that are black, you can't recycle them because the machine can't figure out what they are. Whereas if that same exact container was done in white, it would be recyclable. That's just a point of clarification. I don't know where the bag, I did say bags clogging our sewers, which I did compliment Jim. It was a good move. I'm in support of it. But when I said black plastic can't be recycled, I didn't mean bags. Just the containers can't be recycled.
Thank you, Ian. Jim?
Yeah, Ian, when I was referring to the black plastic bags, I think Ms. Patricia mentioned that, not you. With regard to the green roof as opposed to the rain gardens, I agree with you, Paul. The city requires, in all these projects, an easement to be granted so that we have access to the roofs. Now, whether we have enough people to go up, whether we have to get a drone or one of those cameras that goes around, but the reality is the soil medium that the green roof grows in is, as you can imagine, if you have a large bag of dirt, it does absorb some water, but clearly it's designed for the root system of the plant. But it's better than having nothing up there, and these green roofs, they're part of the rebuild by design, delay. It's resist, delay, store, and discharge, and it's during the storm. We want to soak up as much as we can so it dries out after the storm.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, Paul.
So if you read into some of the paperwork that's put up by the town about their plans, and I was reading about some of the aggressive policies that we have that the administration wants to basically take global issues and beat some of the numbers that the Paris Accord has kind of put out. I believe I was reading something that supposedly by 2020, we're going to be 50% on-grid and 50% off-grid, but I think that's just for the municipality. So I've yet to see anything published to the community. Maybe I'm not reading the right newspapers or the right reports that come out, but it's accountability. And it's our job as the citizens to demand from our government transparency. How far are we on this? And how much more are we going to do? Or are we behind or are we ahead? I don't know anything. I just look at the nice headlines and I look at these PowerPoint presentations that are 160 or 180 pages long, and it's all nice and dandy, but if we don't have accountability, we can say all we want. We have to have people accountable for it, and educate the community. Are we hitting our goals?
Thank you, Paul. I want to move on to the next question. Sheila, are you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, great. Patricia, it's your turn to answer first. I want to move on to public safety.
Oh my God.
We have a new police chief in Hoboken. It seems too often tap into Hoboken reporting on crime, some of them petty, some of them much more serious, including, unfortunately, a shooting that occurred last week. If you get elected to the council, what would be your plan for public safety and to make Hoboken not only make sure residents are safer, but that they feel safer?
I want to take the politics out of the police department, period. Me being a former officer, the police department and public safety, even the fire department too, has been very political. Right before a police chief got appointed, the appointment and the process of the appointment comes from the mayor. He advertised that he was supporting the mayor and endorsing him. That made the residents feel a little unsafe because he got to be, abide by whatever Mayor Bala puts up forth. And with respect to the shooting in the housing authority, they send police officers down there to park the vehicles outside the housing authority to ensure them safety. They don't do enough with that area in the housing authority with the shooting, and it's more like cover up. They really don't feel comfortable with the police department, especially when you see the way they interact with administration and the politics, wheeling and dealing. When the police chief he resigned, they appointed this other police chief, the new one, and now I'm hearing in a couple of days he resigned in a couple of weeks. It clearly showed that it's political. So I want them to be safe and feel safe. And me, I do have a great relationship, let me put that on the record, with my police department, but I'm gonna call out wrongdoing when I see it. And with respect to safety too, the fire department is the artery in our city too. And the fire chief is on administrative leave, which isn't a good thing. I mean, I don't know if he's getting paid or not, but just being disciplined regardless, and lawsuits is, pending with that investigation, so I don't wanna say much. If the politics stay out of the police and the public safety, it'll also ensure the residents that will feel safe.
Thank you, Patricia. Sheila, I want to come back down to you on the question of public safety.
I would like to see more police officers walking the beat. Haven't seen that in quite a while unless there's a big event somewhere where a bunch of police officers are gathered. I think they should be in every part of town, constantly walking around, getting to know the neighbors, getting to know the children. The other thing I would say is that I'm very proud to have received the endorsement of the progressive Democrats of Hudson County. And one of the things I believe in, and I know they believe in, is to scale back the militarization of the police force. We're a mile square. We're Hoboken. I would be absolutely against any of that overdone equipment here. I think the best way to police is to be involved in the community and get out of your cars, walk around, talk to the people, let them know who you are, that you're a member of the community as well.
Thank you, Sheila. Jim?
Thank you. I want to say that I think we all can be proud that last summer when there was a large Black Lives Matter gathering, in many places where that happened elsewhere in the country, it turned out where it did not turn out well, with the police reacting poorly, and yet it was very well attended in Hoboken, and there were no issues whatsoever with our police. That notwithstanding, the council has just approved spending for, and I can't remember the specific amount, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for body cams for our police. So not that our police have been doing things wrong, but it's an indication that public safety is important and police conduct is very important to me and to the administration. And I mentioned earlier about homelessness and how the police we're trying to work to figure out some strategies that will, multi-pronged approaches to address the homeless situation without it being just the police rounding up the homeless and trying to, get them out of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Paul?
Listen, the first person you call when you're in trouble are the police. They run into danger. So my hat's off to them I can't say enough that thank you for what they do. But I think we need to look at this as we have to have equitable enforcement. And it's not just talk about the safety of our lives. I think it runs all the way to all modes of transportation. So many of us have had the modes of transportation that we use in Hoboken. And for example, many of us are seeing right now the unsafe conditions where some of these electrified bikes or micro bikes are on the sidewalk going faster, and there's a concern there. I see bikes coming up, some of these delivery bikes coming up one-way streets, and there's no enforcement for that. So for me, I want to make sure that if I get in the city council, that our police officers are properly trained to handle these, that they are properly trained if we bring scooters back, that they're properly trained how to deal with these things, and that we have equitable enforcement. But that starts at the top down. It comes from the mayor down to the police chief, and the police chief distributes the ideas that they would like to have in this town. I agree with Sheila, and I believe about 10 years ago, I remember we used to see on Washington Street and some other parts of Hoboken, police officers on the beat, and it was actually nice because you would say, "Good morning, officer," or "How you doing?" or you got to have a rapport with these people. And that's the only way we're going to have a better relationship with our police, our public safety. But it costs money. So that's another thing. We need to make sure that our police and fire and all of our assets are running efficiently. So maybe we have to do a little bit of a comprehensive review as well, just to make sure that there are no efficiencies and that our productivity can increase even from our officers.
Thank you, Paul. Ian?
3 weeks ago on the corner of 10th and Washington, a few feet from the corner, I noticed an electrical cable hanging about 4.5 feet high. Obviously, it was to a sidewalk cafe, and it was just to provide some kind of lighting at night. And a little bit dangerous, especially if somebody riding a bike on the sidewalk were to come along. So I did the best I could. I climbed up a little. I put my 2-year-old down, climbed a little bit, tied it up. 420-2100. Yes, dispatch, there's a electrical extension cord hanging really low at this address. And I went over to a different restaurant to have breakfast, and within 120 seconds, a fire truck came and really fixed the electrical cable. So this is representative, in my opinion, of what we can expect. Now, this required coordination even between the police department and the fire department. So kudos to our police force. But Sheila has hit it exactly on the head. We're a walking town. Most people get around Hoboken by walking. We need walking or cycling police officers. I think I would be in favor of requiring every police officer, I don't even care if it's a desk sergeant, everybody should walk from the bottom of Hoboken to the top of Hoboken and back down. And I would extend that to the entire city council too. Every single day you should be taking a walk the entire length of our town. That's what a public servant should be doing. We are a walking town, and I think we should expect our public servants to be walking our town.
Thank you, Ian. I'm going to come over here to Paul for a 1-minute response.
It sounds very cliche, but the only way you solve problems or make things more efficient is you actually put yourself in that role for a day. So I give you my word that what I would do is, if I'm elected to city council, I will make sure that I do ride-alongs within allowed by law, ride-alongs with the police, the firemen, our garbage, our parking enforcement, work with the HHA to see what it's like to walk a day in their shoes, to better understand the problems. And once you understand some of the problems, then you could come back to the table and understand where people come from and why they're upset. So as a public servant, that's the least I could do. That's what I have to do for you. So I make decisions that are going to essentially be better than what I would just sit here if I stood behind this podium and blindly said I was going to do something.
Thank you, Paul. Patricia?
My point exactly what I was saying about on-hand experience. I want to give kudos to Captain Jacobelli. He just started a police initiative to unite the community. called Unity in the Community. He just started a police initiative because if your community respect you, the police department's job become easier because we do community policing together. And with respect to Ian, he's 100% right. We can't have our police department fighting against our fire department because they both, like I said, is the line artery in our city. When my mother passed away, unfortunately, I found her in a house. The first one on the scene was the fire department, not the police department. So for the mayor to bring that little tension between the police department versus the fire department, that's bringing politics into the public safety, just to clarify what I said earlier. And for top brass too, to get almost 200 grand, they shouldn't be sitting inside the police department. They should get out there and walk the beats and see what it is too that the regular officer is going through.
Thank you, Patricia. Yes, Ian.
So if you start in the middle of Hoboken and you go all the way up to the top of Hoboken, turn right at 14th Street, get to Hudson Street, run all the way down through Stevens College, up Stevens Hill, a roundabout, back up Hudson Street, and then kind of back down and around and finish towards the bottom of Hoboken. You've just done the Thursday night Hoboken Harriers route. And Jim and I can argue which one of us have done it more. I think the point is, going around town on foot, you see a lot of things, whether it's street lights out, constituents that need help, other things, and we see it constantly. But being in a vehicle, it really hides things that you should be seeing. On foot really is the best way to work in the city of Hoboken, I think.
Thank you, Ian. Anybody else want to rebut? If not, I want to get to the last question. We are running out of time here. This has been a very spirited discussion so far. And that question is about small businesses. Obviously, small business is the lifeblood of Hoboken. They've been hit terribly by COVID-19. Are you satisfied with Hoboken's response to the small business, what's been going on, how Hoboken has supported them? What would you do differently, if anything? And I want to start with you, Sheila.
Yeah, I think we can always do more to support small businesses. I know I shop local every day in Hoboken, and I choose to shop local beyond, anywhere else if I had a choice. Our small businesses are the heart and soul of this town. The This Place Matters initiative truly does bring the awareness to the public of this, but I think we need to do more to encourage people to shop local. We need to also try to remove as many impediments to success that they have in terms of permitting processes and licensing. We need to make it easier and not harder to open a small business and to run it.
Thank you, Sheila. Jim?
Thank you. Well, during COVID, it's been a unique situation. We spoke last night about the parklets and the streeteries as an effort to help one component of our small businesses, and I think it's been a great experiment, and I hope it's extended permanently. We also raised a fair amount of money and gave out numerous grants to small businesses to help them during COVID. And I'm grateful to many of the larger businesses in town that donated funds for that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Special Improvement District, which Councilwoman Fisher, who's nearby, has spearheaded and has done a great job for our city, which it improves the image of Hoboken, and which is something that we hope will help small businesses in normal times as opposed to in this era of COVID. I certainly agree that shopping local, I advocate that. I've never purchased anything from Amazon in my life. I don't know if the rest can say that. But I do want to dispel a bit of a notion. Certainly I've never opened a small business, so I can't say the difficulties of opening a small business with firsthand, but City Hall is open. There was some discussion about how you can't go into City Hall and why is it not open. It is open for business. You can make an appointment, and if you show up at City Hall and you don't have an appointment, you can make an appointment on the spot. So during COVID, there are precautions that are being taken, but the notion that City Hall is closed and we're just doing everything online and no one's being responsive is not an accurate appraisal.
Thank you, Jim. Paul?
Well, Jim, I appreciate you saying City Hall open, but I don't think that's right. It seems like it's the mayor's fortress. It's ours. It's our tax-paying dollars. It's the community owns that. And I cannot walk in the front door anymore. I have to walk through the metal detector to get through here, and somebody has to walk me and say, I can't go this way. That's not an open city hall. But let's get back to small businesses. Parklets have been great. There have been some issues in certain communities with noise and things of that nature, but again, we have to get together and talk, community involvement. I see a lot of empty buildings on Washington Street. Why? Well, it's notoriously known that the whole issue to get your permit or to get it approved is a painful process. And many people say it's easier to go into Jersey City and go do that, and several have. So I have to ask the question, why are people doing this? Why have we not asked the people that have started the process and never finished? I sat through a historical meeting once, and they were nitpicking about 6 inches on a sign. That meant that the person had to come back, pay their architect again, redo the design, and add another $5,000. I would say right away, forget it, I'll just go do it in another city. But I also hear from existing businesses that the city doesn't care, or the city doesn't listen. Well, that's a problem. We need to talk to our local businesses, because that's a fabric of our town, along with everybody else. But at the end of the day, if our local businesses are saying that, why are they saying it? So has anybody gone and spoke to them? But ultimately, it goes back to what I said. You need to have the community involved. You need to be out in the community and find out what the pulse of it is, bring it back, and make the right decisions once you are informed.
Thank you, Paul. Ian?
Paul, you can ask me. Steve, is it okay for me to mention my business?
Absolutely.
So I own a family entertainment center in Hoboken. We opened just a few months before COVID started. We have things like pool tables and golf simulators and a whole host of other things. So I know firsthand how to open a business in Hoboken, what it's like to open a business in Hoboken, all the steps required, and even beyond, steps that I shouldn't have had to take that I had to go through. As far as the COVID support, which I think was kind of the initial lead to the question, this is a very tough time for businesses. The movie theater in Hoboken is likely gone forever. It's hard to own an entertainment-oriented business, but I wouldn't complain about the amount of help, just it would be so nice, because COVID is an open-ended situation, this could last a couple more years. It would be so nice if there was periodic, say monthly, a 15% subsidy for my overhead, things like rent and my labor costs. Not a big subsidy, because I am open, just half of my business isn't, or half of my foot traffic isn't there. So it's really hard to be a small business owner and to just guess that I can survive for the next 18 to 24 months while we still have reduced foot traffic. And I think government, and that includes Hoboken, but also state and federal, if they came up with a more periodic, a monthly subsidy, 10, 15% of overhead to support small business.
Thank you, Ian. Patricia?
With respect to small businesses, even before the COVID, a lot of small businesses that have been in Hoboken for years, we lost. Biggie's, I mean, the list goes on. We was the bakery, a few other businesses. We lost a lot of grandma and grandpa stores that people couldn't even survive in Hoboken. And this is before the COVID. So I feel bad for the small businesses that was impacted by COVID. And I don't know who said it earlier about the grants. The city did do this grant program to help small businesses, but my concern was, and a few business owners even approached me, who picks who gets the money? Like he said with subsidy, that would have definitely helped subsidize him being Ian being in PAC for 2 years. COVID's been 2 years now, and it's not gonna get back to normal right away. So we should support our small businesses, but don't give it to your cronies and your friends. Give it to small business owners like him, and it's his family business, that deserve it, and the residents that live there. Now, I'm a little upset because, this is gonna be my rebuttal now, so sure. I'm a little upset because Doyle said that City Hall is open. It is not. I physically went to City Hall for the last 6 months and tried to make an appointment. We had discrepancies with picking up petitions. City Hall is not open. You got the cops waiting for you in the violation department on the side building, and when you go there, you can't get in. I just raised concerns last night at the debate. Tomorrow starts in-person voting, early voting. I said, you just announced to go to City Hall and vote. City Hall is closed. So seniors and other people is under the impression that City Hall is closed, and it is. So when they tell you make an appointment, there's a number on the door that you call that nobody answers. It ain't no answering machine, and when you go down physically, you do not make an appointment. I may make an appointment with Mayor Bala for 6 months, and my phone will indicate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Yes, Ian, 1 minute.
So I did get help from the city of Hoboken and other government agencies, just to clarify, and I think most businesses did get help in Hoboken. I got roughly 3 months of my overhead covered, which when 9 months, 10 months, 12 months into the pandemic, it seemed this is great, so generous, but now we're 20 months in. And I was closed for 3.5 months. So 3 months of overhead covered, 3.5 months actually being closed. So figure it out. I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. In regards to City Hall, Monday, exactly 7 days before petitions were due, I called the city clerk's office, got a voicemail message. Mailbox is full. Monday afternoon, same thing. Tuesday morning, same thing. Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to call my council person. Hi, Jen Giattino. Yes, this is your constituent, Ian Rintel. I'm trying to get petitions picked up. How do I do this? Let me try calling the city clerk on his cell phone. I don't have his cell phone number. She did, and I was finally able to get petitions on Wednesday morning.
Thank you, Ian. Anybody else want to give a 1-minute response? If not, we're going to move on to closing statements, and we started opening statements left to right, so we're going to go right to left this time. You have a 1-minute closing statement. I would encourage you to use this time to tell voters where to find you both on the ballot and your campaign material over the next couple weeks. Patricia, we want to start with you.
Hi. Again, I'm running for Hoboken City Council at Large, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but today. It's time for diversity, true diversity in Hoboken. Most of you guys know me as the upset all the time, crazy, emotional Patricia Waiters. I have a heart of gold. I extend my heart and my hand to you for 15 years and was disenfranchised by most of you council people, and you know who you are. When seats became available and you had an opportunity to appoint me, none of you guys did it. And I was hoping last night some of my opponents witnessed the biased behavior. Please, it's time to stop that. If you want real change in Hoboken, allow me to get the council seat and continue doing what I've been doing for years. My number is 15H. I'm also running for the Board of Ed. 1F. I'm also running for mayor. I'm telling you to write me in. Please do not leave the space blank. Write in for mayor. And on November 2nd, I'll be out tomorrow, Saturday, giving people a ride if they need it to City Hall. Let's get out there tomorrow. Every day that you can, grab somebody, get down to the polls and vote between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Ian, I want to come to you for a 1-minute closing statement.
I am not a politician. If I win, I might have to buy a suit. I'm the only one here without a suit. I might have to borrow a tie from Steve. I think the problem we have is that government in Hoboken is running from the top down. And actually, the way that government, the way that the city council should function is from the bottom. Well, I won't say that constituents are at the bottom, but from the constituents up. You all have the power. You can vote for me or for any of these other candidates, and you can decide who makes decisions in Hoboken and whether it should be in your interest or in some other politician's interest. Vote for me, 3H.
Thank you. Paul?
My whole life, I've made decisions that not only had to impact the moment, but also the future. What I've learned most is that problems are solved with common sense. They're achieved by asking the right questions and making sure the right people are at the table. But I find too many decisions in City Hall are made before the community has any chance to weigh in. I will always listen first and educate myself on the problems before I offer solutions. I'll be happy to work with the mayor and the city council on advancing all good proposals and strategies with the utmost benefit to Hoboken. But I will stand up to those that lack merit, too costly, and most of all the ones that kick the can down the road. I will make our City Hall state-of-the-art. I will increase revenue by leveraging our current assets and keeping expenses and our taxes in check. I will make sure there's transparency. I will demand accountability on everything from budgets to projects which have been approved in the past and those that are on the table. I will be your leader your champion, and most of all, your voice. This is what you get when you vote for Paul Presenzano on November 2nd.
Thank you, Paul. Jim?
Thank you. I'd like to thank QLC again for pulling us together. Yeah, I believe, we've heard a lot of criticism, but I believe that a lot of progress has been made in Hoboken in the past 8 years. We are in the process now, through either acquisition and or actual construction, of adding 12 more acres of park in Hoboken. I started out with an open space agenda. We have also I have worked very hard to control the development, and I think my record stands for itself. We've heard a lot about all the challenges that we face in the city here tonight, but I think that at the outset, the thing that motivates me, and I think the greatest challenge, is climate change. Many of these issues are more immediate in need, and I recognize that, but if 50 years from now Hoboken's completely underwater, then I don't know that the parking problem is going to be an issue any longer, unless, as Patricia mentioned, it's a boat. So I hope that all of you will conclude that I have the capability and the ability to solve some of these problems, and I hope you'll support me and my slate, 5H, 6H, 7H. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. And Sheila?
Yeah, like I said at the outset, I'm not a politician. I have a deep commitment to public service, and I want to help make Hoboken even better than it is. Flooding should not be the price we pay to live in the greatest city on earth. Residents should not spend hours searching for a parking space when our municipal garages sit empty overnight. We should not feel like we're taking our life in our hands crossing the street or walking on the sidewalk when we have the resources for better enforcement. The community should not feel that decisions are being made in the back rooms without their input, which could help improve policy. Nobody has all the answers, but if we can come together and roll up our sleeves and fight for the city that we love, we can collectively create a better future for Hoboken. I hope I can earn your vote. Sheila Brennan, 10H.
Thank you, Sheila. Sheila Brennan, Jim Doyle, Paul Presenzano, Ian Rintel, Patricia Waiters, thank you for joining us here tonight. This was the first of 2 candidate forums hosted by the Hoboken Quality of Life Coalition. We're going to be back at 8 o'clock with the second set of 5 candidates. I'm Steve Lenox. I'm the publisher of Tapped Into Hoboken. And remember that voting has started by mail. Early voting starts tomorrow at City Hall. And you can vote in your polling place on Tuesday, November 2nd. Thank you and have a nice night.